My beloved child. There are moments in life that arrive so quietly that most people almost miss them, yet those moments carry the weight of an entire turning point. This is one of those moments, and that is why this message found you now, not earlier, not later, but exactly when your heart was ready to hear what has been hidden beneath your journey all this time. A doctor once sat across from someone whose eyes looked calm on the outside but were carrying years of silent questions within. Before any report was opened, before any conclusion was spoken, the doctor paused and said something unexpected. Sometimes the body keeps walking even when the soul is tired, and sometimes the deepest sign is not pain, but the quiet way a person keeps going while carrying more than anyone realizes. That sentence stayed in the room long after everything else ended. Because what was being seen was not only health, not only effort, not only struggle. It was a journey written in invisible lines, a path marked by things no one applauded, nights no one understood, and choices made when there was no certainty ahead. And this matters for you more than you realize. Because there is something about your journey that has been misunderstood by many around you. Some saw delay and assumed nothing was happening. Some saw silence and thought nothing was changing. Some saw you waiting and believed your story had become ordinary. But what they could not see was the preparation happening beneath everything. Do not skip, because something huge is waiting for you. There are seasons when nothing seems to move, yet those are the exact seasons when the foundation becomes stronger than ever. The doctor's words were not spoken only for one person in one room. They carry something larger. Not every quiet season means emptiness. Sometimes quiet means rebuilding. You may have wondered why certain doors slowed down. Why some people entered your life only to leave before understanding your value. Why certain answers came late. Why some mornings felt heavier than they should have. Why your own thoughts sometimes became louder than the voices around you. But listen carefully, what felt delayed was often being arranged beyond your sight. A journey is rarely recognized while someone is inside it. Recognition usually arrives later, when every confusing piece suddenly reveals why it had to stand where it stood. And something about your current moment carries that exact feeling now. Because there is a reason this title reached your eyes. A doctor shared something important about your journey because journeys reveal themselves through patterns, and patterns never lie. The strongest people often carry signs that even they do not fully understand until a certain day arrives and everything begins connecting. One quiet habit. One repeated feeling. One inner pull you could not explain. One refusal inside you to give up, even when logic suggested stopping. That is not ordinary. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. There are people who turned away from their own path because the middle looked too uncertain. But your story has continued even through uncertainty, and that matters more than you know. Because there is often one hidden reason why certain people endure longer than expected, they are closer to a chapter they cannot yet imagine. And sometimes the closer someone comes to that chapter, the more unusual everything feels beforehand. That may explain why lately you have sensed something shifting even if you could not describe it clearly. A strange feeling when you wake up. An unexpected memory returning. A sense that something unfinished is near completion. A thought that keeps returning without invitation. These are not random to the heart that has learned how to notice. The doctor noticed something else too. He said that many people think healing always looks dramatic, but often the biggest healing begins silently, where no one claps, no one notices, and no one understands why someone suddenly feels different inside. And perhaps that is what has already started in you. Not loudly, not publicly, but deeply. Because there are things inside you that no longer react the way they once did. What used to shake you now teaches you. What once delayed you now sharpens you. What once confused you now prepares you. And this is where most people fail to recognize their own progress. They expect thunder, but transformation often begins like a whisper. Do not skip. Because there is something else hidden here. Some journeys attract resistance not because they are weak, but because they are carrying something rare. And rare journeys often pass through ordinary-looking days before revealing extraordinary meaning. That ordinary day when you almost gave up. That quiet afternoon when nothing seemed important. That moment you questioned whether your effort mattered. Those moments were not empty. They were recording who you were becoming. And one day, often unexpectedly, everything begins speaking back. A message appears. A conversation happens. A sentence reaches you. A title finds you. And suddenly what looked random begins to feel precise. That is why you are here now. Because something in your spirit recognized that this was not ordinary timing. There are truths that only arrive when the heart is finally quiet enough to receive them. And here is one of them. Your journey has not been forgotten simply because it has been difficult. Sometimes difficult paths are carrying clearer direction than easy ones. The strongest chapters often begin when someone stops demanding immediate proof and begins trusting what cannot yet be measured. The doctor's sentence still echoes because it revealed something simple yet powerful. A person can carry invisible strength for years before the world understands what that strength was preparing them for. And perhaps you are standing very close to that understanding now. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because there is still one detail many miss. What looks unfinished today may already be forming its final shape. And when that shape appears, even people who doubted your direction will quietly realize they misunderstood the whole journey. Not because you explained it, but because time explained it for you. And time always reveals what silence was protecting. So if lately your heart has felt pulled toward reflection, toward deeper thought, toward questioning why certain pieces happened exactly as they did, do not ignore that feeling. Sometimes reflection begins right before revelation. And revelation changes everything without warning. Because what is coming next in your journey may not arrive loudly, but when it arrives, you will understand why certain seasons had to remain unclear. For now, hold this carefully. The path you walked was not empty. The waiting was not meaningless. The silence was not absence. And the message that found you today did not arrive by accident. Something is moving beneath what you can currently see, and soon even the quiet parts of your story will begin to make sense in ways that feel almost impossible to explain. And then something happened that almost no one expects during an ordinary day. The smallest detail began to explain the biggest question. The doctor looked again, not at numbers, not at charts, but at the quiet pattern hidden behind everything, and said that there are times when a person believes they are simply surviving, while in truth they are standing in the middle of a major internal shift that has been building for far longer than they realize. That sentence matters now more than ever, because many people reach a certain point in life where they think nothing significant is changing simply because they cannot yet see visible proof. But the deepest changes often begin where there is no applause, no announcement, and no immediate sign. And your journey carries that exact feeling. Do not skip, because something huge is waiting for you. There is a reason some days recently have felt different, even if outwardly they looked exactly the same as before. A familiar place suddenly felt unfamiliar. A routine thought suddenly carried unusual weight. A simple moment became impossible to ignore. That is how hidden turning points begin. Not with noise. Not with dramatic signs. But with a quiet inner recognition that something is approaching. The doctor explained that sometimes a person reaches a stage where the body continues in ordinary rhythm, but the heart begins sensing that an old chapter is quietly loosening its hold. And when that happens, life starts speaking in subtle ways. A delayed answer begins to make sense. An old memory returns with new meaning. A person you had almost forgotten suddenly crosses your mind. A sentence you hear once keeps echoing long after everyone else has moved on. These moments are never as small as they appear. Because journeys often reveal themselves through repetition before revelation arrives. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. There are people who mistake silence for emptiness, but silence often carries the loudest preparation. Some chapters stay quiet because they are gathering strength beneath the surface. What looks ordinary may already be carrying tomorrow's explanation. And perhaps that explains why lately you have felt pulled to think more deeply than usual. Why certain moments have made you pause. Why some emotions appeared without clear reason. Why your own thoughts have begun asking questions you had stopped asking before. The doctor said something even more surprising after that. He said that one of the clearest signs of approaching change is when someone begins noticing details they once ignored. A look. A pattern. A feeling. A small interruption in routine. Because the mind notices what the heart is already preparing to understand. And this may be the reason this message feels strangely personal to you. Because not every message arrives to inform, some arrive to awaken recognition. Do not skip. There are journeys where the hardest part is not pain, but uncertainty. Not knowing whether the effort matters. Not knowing whether the waiting means anything. Not knowing whether the silence has purpose. Yet again and again, life proves something remarkable. Many of the most meaningful moments first appear disguised as ordinary days. The conversation in that room did not sound dramatic. No loud statement was made. No extraordinary event followed immediately. Yet the sentence spoken there stayed stronger than everything else because truth often arrives softly and remains permanently. And the truth was this. A person can stand much closer to an answer than they imagine while still feeling surrounded by questions. Think carefully about that. Because maybe what you call delay has actually been alignment. Maybe what looked like distance has been preparation. Maybe what felt slow has been careful positioning. And maybe the reason certain things did not happen earlier is because your journey required a different timing than you expected. Something huge is waiting for you. There are moments when people suddenly realize that what once disappointed them was quietly protecting the shape of what belonged later. A missed chance became a better direction. A closed conversation prevented confusion. A season of stillness protected clarity. And only later does everything begin fitting together. The doctor noticed another pattern too. Those who carry quiet endurance often underestimate how much they have already overcome. Because strength becomes so familiar that it stops looking remarkable to the person carrying it. Yet if you truly looked back, you would notice how many moments should have broken your confidence but did not. How many quiet recoveries happened without anyone knowing. How many times you kept moving while carrying thoughts too heavy to explain. That is not ordinary. That is part of your journey's evidence. Stay till the end. Because one detail remains. Sometimes the reason a person suddenly feels drawn toward reflection is because an important realization is near enough that their spirit begins preparing before their mind catches up. That is why certain words now feel heavier. That is why certain memories return with unusual clarity. That is why even ordinary moments lately may feel like they are carrying hidden meaning. Because once-in-a-lifetime realizations rarely announce themselves loudly. They arrive gently, then change the way everything behind them is understood. And what if this is one of those moments for you? What if the reason this message reached you today is because your journey has entered a stage where old confusion is slowly giving way to new understanding? The doctor did not call it coincidence. He called it timing. And timing explains many things people spend years questioning. Not every answer belongs to the moment you first ask. Some answers belong to the moment you are finally ready to recognize them. So if lately you have sensed that something unseen is shifting, trust that feeling carefully. Because journeys often speak before outcomes appear. And when outcomes finally arrive, they often reveal that the quiet signs had been present all along. Do not skip. Something huge is waiting for you. Sooner than expected, one small moment may connect many scattered pieces in a way that makes you stop and realize that nothing in your path was as random as it first seemed. What came next was even quieter, yet somehow even more powerful, because the doctor leaned forward and shared a thought that most people never hear at the exact moment they need it. Sometimes the clearest proof that a journey is changing is not what appears around a person, but what begins to settle within them without explanation. That idea stayed in the air because it carried something deeper than advice. It sounded like recognition, as if a hidden page of someone's life had just been read aloud without anyone showing the full story. And perhaps that is why this moment matters for you now. Because there are times when nothing outside seems dramatic, yet inside, something unmistakable begins rearranging itself. A thought becomes clearer. A fear becomes quieter. A memory loses its old weight. A question that once felt urgent suddenly feels smaller than before. That is not accidental. Do not skip, because something huge is waiting for you. Many people think important moments must arrive with obvious signs, but often the rarest moments enter softly, almost unnoticed, until one sentence, one realization, or one unexpected feeling suddenly reveals that everything has already begun changing. The doctor explained that journeys often pass through a hidden stage where the person walking through it cannot yet name what is happening, but they can feel that something old no longer fits the same way. And maybe you have felt that too. A conversation that once mattered now feels distant. An old disappointment no longer holds the same power. A certain silence feels different than before. A strange calm appears where confusion once lived. This is how deeper chapters begin opening. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. There is something extraordinary about the moment a person begins noticing that their reactions are changing before their circumstances do. It means something inside has already started moving ahead of what the eyes can see. That is often the earliest sign that a journey is entering a meaningful turn. Because true change often begins internally long before it becomes visible externally. The doctor said that some people wait for proof outside while proof is already quietly growing inside them. That sentence reveals more than it first appears to reveal. Because if you look carefully, there may already be evidence in your own journey. You stayed where many would have walked away. You kept thinking deeply when others chose distraction. You continued hoping through moments that offered very little reason to hope. And most importantly, you kept moving even during days when nothing seemed to confirm that movement mattered. That kind of quiet persistence leaves marks, even when no one notices immediately. Do not skip. Because there is another detail hidden here. Sometimes life protects certain answers until the exact moment they can be understood without fear. That means what once felt delayed may not have been denied at all. It may simply have been waiting for the right version of you to arrive first. Think about how much has changed in you without announcement. The way you now notice meaning in ordinary moments. The way certain words reach deeper than before. The way silence sometimes feels full rather than empty. These are not small things. They are signals that your journey is no longer standing where it once stood. The doctor looked at that person and said something almost impossible to forget. There are seasons when a person believes they are only enduring, but later they discover they were becoming prepared for something that would have felt impossible earlier. And that may be the hidden truth behind your recent days. Because some chapters cannot begin until old weight loses its hold. Some clarity cannot arrive until certain questions become quieter. Some doors only make sense after a person has learned how to recognize them. Something huge is waiting for you. And often, just before that realization arrives, life becomes strangely reflective. You notice patterns from years ago. You suddenly understand why certain people came and left. You begin seeing how moments that once hurt were shaping direction. And what once looked disconnected begins forming one clear line. This is why some messages arrive exactly when they do. Not early. Not late. At the exact point where recognition becomes possible. Stay till the end. Because there is one more truth the doctor shared. He said that when someone reaches the edge of understanding, they often feel both calm and curiosity at the same time, as if part of them already senses that a hidden explanation is near. That feeling matters. Because curiosity often appears when something meaningful is close enough to be felt but not yet fully seen. Perhaps that explains why certain thoughts now return more strongly than before. Why certain memories refuse to leave quickly. Why your attention keeps returning to specific questions even when you try to move past them. It may be because your journey is beginning to reveal something it has carried quietly for a long time. And when that happens, ordinary days stop feeling ordinary. A title feels personal. A sentence feels precise. A moment feels strangely timed. And suddenly the heart recognizes what the mind cannot fully explain yet. Do not skip. Because many people miss their own turning points by assuming they must look dramatic. But some turning points look like a calm day. A simple thought. A quiet sentence. A message arriving at exactly the right moment. And later, when everything becomes clearer, they realize that was the day the deeper meaning began unfolding. So if today feels unusually significant, trust that feeling carefully. Because sometimes the smallest arrival carries the largest shift. And what seems like only another message now may soon become one of those moments you remember because it arrived just before everything began making sense in a new way. Then came the part of the conversation that no one in that room expected to carry such lasting weight, because the doctor became very quiet before saying that some journeys reach a moment where even the smallest sign begins carrying unusual meaning. Not because life suddenly changes in 1 second, but because the person has finally arrived at the edge of understanding what earlier seasons were building. That silence before those words mattered. Because sometimes silence itself becomes part of the message. And if you have ever felt that lately certain ordinary moments suddenly feel deeper than they should, that may not be random at all. Do not skip, because something huge is waiting for you. There are times when a person walks through many months believing they are only passing through repetition, yet beneath that repetition something invisible is arranging perspective, strength, patience, and clarity all at once. The doctor explained that this hidden preparation often becomes visible only when someone suddenly notices how differently they now see what once confused them. A disappointment that once felt heavy now feels understandable. A delay that once felt unfair now appears strangely necessary. A silence that once felt empty now begins to look protective. And that is where many people realize they were never standing still at all. They were changing quietly. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. This matters because your journey may already be carrying signs that only now are becoming visible enough to notice. Perhaps you have recently felt a strange awareness that certain things no longer affect you as they once did. Perhaps you noticed yourself pausing before reacting. Perhaps an old thought returned, but this time it did not carry the same weight. That is often how deeper progress reveals itself, not loudly, but unmistakably. The doctor said that one of the rarest moments in any journey is when someone finally begins recognizing that what felt uncertain was still shaping direction with precision. That sentence changes the way many people see their own past. Because suddenly what looked scattered begins forming a pattern. The missed opportunities. The unexpected pauses. The conversations that ended too early. The plans that shifted without warning. Each one may have been part of a path you could not read while walking through it. And now the reason may be getting closer than before. Do not skip. Because one surprising truth still remains. Sometimes the strongest chapter begins not when something dramatic arrives, but when your own inner voice becomes clear enough that you finally hear what has been trying to reach you for a long time. That inner clarity changes everything. Because once clarity arrives, confusion loses much of its power. You begin understanding why some moments had to remain unanswered. You begin seeing why certain people could not stay. You begin realizing that timing often protected what emotion could not understand. The doctor described it this way: there are seasons when life seems to hold back explanation until the person is strong enough to receive it without losing peace. Think carefully about that. Because perhaps the reason some answers felt distant was never absence, but timing. And timing has a way of revealing itself when least expected. Something huge is waiting for you. This is why certain messages feel unusually precise when they appear. Because precision often arrives when the heart has become ready to notice what earlier versions of itself would have ignored. That may explain why today feels different. Why this title did not feel ordinary. Why these words seem to echo longer than expected. Because sometimes a message does not come only to comfort, sometimes it comes to awaken recognition that your journey has already entered a new depth. The doctor looked at that person one final time and said that people often underestimate how close they are to understanding because they judge progress only by visible change. But visible change is often the final stage, not the first. Before anything becomes visible, there is inner alignment. Before results appear, there is quiet strengthening. Before clarity becomes obvious, there is silent preparation. And that preparation may already be far more advanced than you think. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Look back for a moment. How many times did you continue even when certainty was missing? How many times did you move forward while carrying questions no one else knew about? How many quiet decisions shaped who you are now without anyone noticing? Those moments were not small. They became part of the reason your journey carries depth today. And depth changes how future chapters unfold. Because people who have walked through silent seasons often recognize meaning faster when it finally arrives. They understand value differently. They notice timing differently. They sense truth differently. Do not skip. There is one final thought the doctor shared that stayed unforgettable. Sometimes the exact day a person thinks nothing special is happening becomes the day a hidden understanding begins changing everything from within. Not loudly. Not instantly. But permanently. And perhaps that is why this message reached you now. Because your journey may already be standing near one of those quiet moments where later you will look back and realize that something important had already begun, even before you could fully name it. What appears simple today may soon reveal itself as the beginning of a clearer chapter, one where even the parts that once felt uncertain begin showing why they had to exist exactly as they did. What made the final part unforgettable was not the complexity of the words, but how simple they sounded when the doctor said them. Sometimes the reason a person cannot fully explain what they feel is because their journey has already started changing before language catches up. That sentence stayed powerful because almost everyone has experienced a moment when something felt deeply important, yet impossible to describe clearly. And that may be exactly where you are now. A quiet sense that something is shifting. A feeling that old thoughts are losing their grip. A strange awareness that ordinary moments are carrying more meaning than before. This is not something to ignore. Do not skip, because something huge is waiting for you. The doctor explained that there are rare stages in life when even before visible answers appear, a person begins sensing that certain pieces are moving toward clarity. It can happen while doing ordinary things. While sitting in silence. While remembering something unexpectedly. While hearing a sentence that feels as if it arrived with unusual precision. That is how hidden understanding often begins. Not with noise. Not with dramatic signs. But with a quiet certainty that something inside no longer feels the same. And that quiet certainty deserves attention. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Because if you look closely, there may already be evidence. The way certain disappointments no longer define your whole day. The way certain questions now feel lighter than before. The way you sometimes pause and realize that you have already moved farther than you once believed possible. This matters more than many people understand. Because journeys are rarely measured accurately while they are being lived. People often think progress means immediate visible proof, but many of the deepest changes become clear only when someone suddenly realizes how different their inner world has become. The doctor said that a person often reaches an important threshold when they stop asking why everything happened exactly as it did, and begin noticing what those experiences quietly built within them. That threshold changes everything. Because once that awareness begins, even old memories lose their old shape. You no longer see only the difficulty. You begin seeing the formation. You no longer see only delay. You begin seeing timing. You no longer see only silence. You begin seeing preparation. Do not skip. Because one once-in-a-lifetime truth remains here. Sometimes the very thing a person thought was slowing them down was actually giving their future meaning it would otherwise never have carried. Think about how powerful that is. The pauses. The waiting. The unanswered moments. What if those were not empty spaces, but hidden structure? What if those exact seasons gave your journey depth that could not have formed any other way? That possibility changes how everything behind you is understood. And perhaps that is why this message found you now. Because there are moments when understanding arrives only after enough distance has passed for the pattern to finally become visible. The doctor looked carefully and said that one day many people suddenly noticed that what once felt uncertain now looks astonishingly precise when viewed from a calmer place. That day often begins quietly. No announcement. No dramatic sign. Just one moment when the heart suddenly understands more than it did yesterday. Something huge is waiting for you. And sometimes that huge thing is not noise around you, but clarity within you that changes how every next step feels. Because once clarity begins, direction becomes different. Choices become calmer. Thoughts become sharper. Even silence begins to feel less heavy. That is often the beginning of a stronger chapter. Stay till the end. Because this part matters deeply. Many people search outside themselves for confirmation that their journey matters, while overlooking how much confirmation already exists in the fact that they continued through moments that should have emptied their confidence. But you continued. That alone carries meaning. You remained thoughtful when distraction was easier. You remained patient when rushing would have been simpler. You remained present even during uncertain stretches. And that kind of quiet endurance often appears ordinary only until later, when its true value becomes impossible to ignore. The doctor called this hidden strength one of the clearest signs that a journey is carrying more significance than the person realizes while living it. And perhaps that is why today feels different. Because some messages do not arrive randomly. Some arrive exactly when a person is near enough to a new understanding that even a few words can awaken something important. Do not skip. Because what feels like a simple moment now may later become one of those memories where you realize that the deeper meaning of your journey had already started revealing itself long before the visible chapter changed. And when that visible chapter finally opens, you may look back at this exact moment and understand why these words reached you with such unusual timing. Your journey was never as unclear as it seemed, it was quietly becoming ready for a clearer beginning than you expected.